to go into that. You know, the 80s and the 90s, especially the 90s, was a real big time for cult hysteria. That's when President Clinton was there, and he was, the Waco thing happened, the Heaven's Gate suicide thing happened, Oklahoma City bombing thing happened during those times, and everything was just pointing at those notorious cults, those people are going to commit suicide, those people are going to take over the government, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, we was in those days. And, of course, we was branded as one of those people. Everything that came along, something happened out there connected with a religious cult, the news media would always want to find out how we were involved. When Heaven's Gate, that's the people that supposedly committed suicide. I forget how many there was, 13, 14 people laid on their bed and committed suicide. It was going to go onto some spaceship up in the sky. It was all weird, bizarre stuff. But when they found them dead in their mansion there in California, the news media called us, wanted to know about it because they had found that car there that had the New Mexico license plate. So they somehow connected us with that cult that committed suicide. And of course, when we started out early, as I said, I was called Jim Jones, I was called Hitler. You know, then when Jim Baker's empire crashed, I was called Jim Baker. I was called Jimmy Swaggart when he got caught in adultery. Jim Jones, Jim Baker, Jim Swaggart, Jim Green. Wow, what's the connection? Jim. It's all connected there. And I don't know why people want to commit suicide. Well, back to this. If you watch what we have going on the YouTube, now, when this message gets out, that will be probably finished up on the YouTube about the cult, the living God, the cult hysteria up there, that you can watch those things. It's up there. You'll see, without a shadow of a doubt, Jonestown was set up by the government. Waco was set up by the government and killed. You will see Heaven's Gate obviously was involved with the government killing those people. You'll know for sure, if you don't, you know 9/11 was an inside job by the United States government. And they blamed it on the Arabs. I'm not saying there was not a plot, a conspiracy by the Muslims to do that. But friend, they knew about that potential danger and they allowed that and helped that happen. If you study anything about 9/11, and of course they got everybody so spooked about all this that everybody's in hysterics about cults, Islamic terrorists, all this. It is a brainwashing job by the United States government to scare the hell, pardon me, they won't scare the hell out of Americans, to scare the salvation out of Americans, to where they have to rely on Uncle Sam at all cost. Oh, protect us from those Islamic. Protect us from those dangerous cults. Protect us from those mass suicide people. Just protect us. Well, sure, they create crisis and they come along and solve the crisis. And every time they do that, they take a little bit more of your freedom away and enslave you more. Pretty soon, you don't even know it, jackass American, that you have a ring in your nose and you're being led around by the United States government brainwashers. It's the very people that are creating these things that make it look like somebody else is doing it. That whole Jonestown thing was the beginning of the cult hysteria. Nobody in their right mind is going to take poison and murder themselves, 900 some odd people. It's impossible. It was done at gunpoint. I think, my own theory is on that, it was not just gunpoint. It was probably they was having some ritual of communion with the Kool-Aid as we would do with wine. I mean, you know, like grape juice. And they probably didn't know it was strychnine. I don't think no one's going to take strychnine and kill themselves. So for what reason? Well, anyway, they did all that's history and it's there. We'll never live it down, Jim Jones and suicide. So everybody, it's in a group or a cult. Well, friend, what are we going to do with America? America itself is one huge cult. And the biggest brainwashers in America is the media. Be it the newscasters or the spellcasters or those that work witchcraft through the media, the means of casting spells upon you dummies that watch their junk and believe it, or the advertising agency that brainwash you to believe you've got to have those Twinkies. You've got to go to McDonald's because McDonald's is the best food on the planet. They will brainwash you believe whatever they want you to believe in. And when they find out something wrong with that, then they'll try to deprogram you. That was bad. That was bad stuff. You shouldn't have eaten all that. That was bad for your health. Now look at you. You have to go to the doctor. You got all these problems because you ate at the Golden Arches. Now you're in trouble. So they deprogram you not to go back to the Golden Arches and eat their junk food anymore. It just goes up and down like this. So, why are we all upset about cults? Why is there such a hysterical thing on the move again about cults? Now, lately, as you know, we've been on National Geographic, of all places, to run things about us. We was on National Geographic. We were, personally, they never invited us. My feelings hurt. But our enemies were on there 3 weekends in a row, giving their boo-hoo, pathetic story. We made them beat their baby on the butt. It was 6 months old. We starved an old lady and made her live in a dark, damp shed for 6 months without a bath, without running water, without toilet. Couldn't see her children. Blah, blah, blah. And that was a pathetic story. 25-year-old story. 3 weekends in a row. And that was a series run 3 or 4 times on a Sunday. Not just one time, 3 or 4 times. They didn't invite us on there. Why? It's because they are continued to demonize ACMTC, my wife and I particularly, as these dangerous, evil people that must be exterminated. It's another cult hysterica hype. You think this thing would have died away? It hasn't died away. We was on the Dr. Phil show. We weren't on there, although Dr. Phil did call here and leave a message on our answering machine and asked us to be on there. But I would never be on that rotten show. But anyway, at least he had the courtesy to invite us to be on there with those poor, pathetic 2 ladies, bleach blonde daughter and poor haggy wife that had this pathetic story to be told over and over again, being locked up by those mean old generals, and you know the story of all that. So I'm just saying, there's bigger cults out there than us, and certainly there's more dangerous people out there than us. There's a lot of people out there right now are preparing for a takeover. I would just talk to a man Saturday and say, well, I got plenty of guns, I got a lot of ammunition, I got some food stored up, I'm ready. Ready for what? Well, the government is moving in and eventually will cause a crisis to bring what we've all been fearing, martial law to this nation, take away your constitutional rights and enslave you. Well, you're already enslaved. You just don't know it, jackass. You don't even know you're enslaved already to the system of United States government. I'm not enslaved to it, but you're not aware. That's why I'm trying to tell you. I'm trying to deprogram you not to believe the United States government because they are liars. Okay. Now, that's why they don't like me. Now, back to this cult. Let me read that definition again. This is out of another dictionary. It's much smaller than what my wife read yesterday, but the ideal of a system of religious worship. It just says religious worship. It didn't say Christian worship. It said religious. Religion encompasses a lot of things. Okay? You can worship a statue of Buddha or the Virgin Mary. It's clay or porcelain.
What a tragedy to bow down to something that cannot speak, to something that cannot hear, but something that only demands and never gives back.
Or it could be a stick. It could be a stone. When we was in India and we went to Nepal, we saw the most appalling things of idols. Everywhere you go in India, there's idols all over the land and temples. It's incredible. People worship that stuff. They worship snakes. They worship everything imaginable. Ducks. In one field, they had a little rock out there. It didn't look like any different from any rock I've seen anywhere in the world I've went. But that was supposed to be some god right there, and they burn incense to that one rock. We have it on video. I thought, why in the world would people want to worship a rock in a field? This is how dumb people are.
All who fashion idols are nothing, and the things they delight in do not profit. Their witnesses neither see nor know, that they may be put to shame. Who fashions a god or casts an idol that is profitable for nothing? Behold, all his companions shall be put to shame, and the craftsmen are only human. Let them all assemble, let them stand forth. They shall be terrified, they shall be put to shame together. The ironsmith takes a cutting tool and works it over the coals. He fashions it with hammers and works it with his strong arm. He becomes hungry and his strength fails. He drinks no water and is faint. The carpenter stretches a line. He marks it out with a pencil. He shapes it with planes and marks it with a compass. He shapes it into the figure of a man, with the beauty of a man, to dwell in a house. He cuts down cedars, or he chooses a cypress tree or an oak, and lets it grow strong among the trees of the forest. He plants a cedar, and the rain nourishes it. Then it becomes fuel for a man. He takes a part of it and warms himself. He kindles a fire and bakes bread. Also, he makes a god and worships it. He makes it an idol and falls down before it.
Here we have soldier Ezra Elliot passing out tracts to sadhus, holy men of India who wander up and down the country looking for a vision, looking here and looking there. Where is God?
So, when you say religious worship, it's just not Christianity you're talking about. Why isn't the government declaiming Buddhism and Hinduism and Islamism and PCism and all these isms in America? It just happens to be they don't like Christianity. And why don't they like Christianity? Because Christianity has a set of rules and regulations.
Worshipping a multitude of idols, the Hindus have intricate carvings of such. Shown here on the side of this building, we can see many idols, each one representing a different form, and each one attributed with different powers governing the many resources of life. The Hindus are a very religious people. However, the gods they serve cannot speak, neither can they hear, neither can they reply.
When you talk to the Virgin Mary, that's porcelain, and you talk to the Buddha, that's porcelain or clay or whatever, they don't talk back to you because they're dead gods.
This cow, gorgeously decked out, is considered an object of worship and reverence in Hindu belief system. Shown here with its keeper, it wanders the streets that everyone may partake of its beguiling beauty and worship it in its regalia.
So you can imagine they're telling you all these good things, but when you talk to the living God, that's another story. And when the living, holy living Spirit is living in your life, that's a different story, because it puts conviction there. That's the difference between true Christianity and sectarian Christianity or pseudo-Christianity and all the other religions of the world. You know, the big ones, of course, is Judaism. It isn't big, but I mean, it's been around probably the longest. Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucianism, Shintoism, all that stuff out there. Then you have Islam that came along. Then you've got, you know, thousands of others, small and larger cults.
In Nepal, people paint and bow down to rocks as gods and symbols of worship. Here in a field is a god, a rock. Here we see two young Hindu girls about to perform a ritual, a worshipful ritual, paying oblation to a tree god. Sad as it may seem to most Westerners and to those who have had exposure to Christianity, in many parts of the world this kind of belief system is still practiced. These girls are offering food and flowers and various other small gifts unto this tree god. And as you will see as we observe them, they are very serious about what they do. And they're very reverential in their worship of the tree god.
And then today I want to basically talk about, when you say I love Jesus, let's define what Jesus we're talking about. Well, finishing up here what a cult is. It's a system of religious worship or rituals. Going through rituals, whatever the rituals may be, devoted attachment to or admiration for a person, a principle. Now, a noun is a person, place, or thing. So I could throw that in there. And of course, ideals, ideologies, and stuff like that. Okay. Isn't that what America's all about? Isn't that what everything's all about in this nation. People worship people, places, and things.
Half of it he burns in the fire. Over the half he eats meat. He roasts it and is satisfied. Also he warms himself and says, "Aha, I am warm, I have seen the fire." And the rest of it he makes into a god, his idol, and falls down to it and worships it. He prays to it and says,